Will PSG's dynamic offense take them all the way? Will Alonso Ball bring this new-look Real Madrid squad to glory? Will Chelsea's new generation finally win a major trophy? Or will Fluminense's rock-solid defense carry them through? Welcome back to the CoDaKrew podcast, where today we will analyze the Final Four of the Club World Cup, giving our analysis, hot takes, and predictions for the semifinals. Last time, we went 3 for 4 on our Club World Cup predictions, so let's see how we do today. Swapnil, which match should we cover first?
I think, Darian, let's start by checking in on our non-European survivors, because perhaps against the expectations for this tournament, 3 out of 8 of them were in these quarterfinals. And I think we can start with our CONMEBOL versus AFC matchup. So let's go to Fluminense versus Al Hilal first.
I think Fluminense really showed not only how good their defense was, but how good their midfield was in that match against Al Hilal. They choked Al Hilal out of opportunities and were very good on the press. Facundo Bernal, Notato, and Gabriel Fuentes each got 3 tackles in that midfield. And from the chances that Fluminense were able to generate off of that, they were very effective. Mateus Martinelli scores a goal from the one shot he got. Hercules with another clutch goal to seal a game. And honestly, if it weren't for some Bono heroics, Fluminense easily could have scored more.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, both sides, they started pretty cautiously. There weren't too many risks taken in the opening exchanges, and I think there were only 2 shots apiece before the 40th minute. But then we had a breakthrough. Javier's floated cross got mishandled by Neves and Cancelo, and Martinelli smashed home a top corner finish to put Fluminense up. As great as Bono has been throughout the tournament, I unfortunately don't think this was a shot he could have saved. We did, though, have just minutes later a towering header from Koulibaly that nearly equalized the game, but 44-year-old Fábio produced a stunning reflex save. I talked in our last segment about how amazing this guy is. Just playing still at his level, at his age, he is, if I'm not mistaken, the player with the second most competitive appearances in all of association football, behind Shilton, another goalkeeper. And if he keeps up these performances, and Lord forbid a bad injury or something of this sort doesn't happen, he is going to take that record, and he really deserves it the way he is playing right now. Um, We've been talking about how Bono has been doing great things for Al Hilal and keeping them in a lot of games, largely on his own. And I would argue Fabio has been doing just as great for Fluminense, and I think his performance here was very important for their win.
Yeah, we would have been looking at a very different game if Fabio doesn't make that save against Koulibaly, but I also want to give credit to that backline that Fluminense has. A 44-year-old Fabio holding down the line, as well as a 40-year-old Thiago Silva leading and captaining the squad on that defensive side. He had an amazing game yet again, and I also have to give credit to Ignacio, who made a crucial clearance to prevent an Al Hilal opportunity, as well as Juan Freitas, who did the same. The one concern, of course, for Fluminense coming into this match will be that Juan Freitas, after picking up another yellow card, will be suspended. But I imagine that Fluminense is probably just going to revert back to their four-in-the-back system that they played in the group stages, and I think it won't be too much of an issue for them. They're a very adaptive team.
Yeah, no, the back line and keeper for Fluminense have both been great throughout this match. I mean, we saw Al Hilal, they did strike early after the restart. You had Neves' corner, it got knocked down by Koulibaly, and Leonardo was quickest to react, so he was able to flick it into the net to equalize. And Fluminense did wobble for a moment, but they were able to keep the pressure on. Fabio and Thiago Silva led a composed defensive stand to see that match out. And of course, you had your winner from Hercules just minutes after coming on. He has also had some great performances in this tournament, I think. A neat aerial win from Javier led to a loose ball in the box, and Hercules pounced. Sharp touch, low finish. And again, because the defense was so strong from Fluminense, Hilal, despite responding with waves of pressure and a series of late corners, were unable to find a second equalizer. So you got the final whistle. Fluminense wins 2-1, and the Fluminense fans were sent into rapture, and they should be excited. It is a team that came in as long shots, and they are now marching into the semifinals, powered by youth, belief, and one 44-year-old wall between the sticks.
And despite the fact that many people are surprised that they even made it this far, we definitely should not be writing them off, even as we get into the semifinals. Because the way I see it, at this point, it's undeniable that Fluminense are a true contender to win this whole tournament. But let's take a look at who's on the other side for them. It's Chelsea, and they got through for a slightly nervy, but still satisfactory win against Palmeiras 2-1. So I think last week I talked some shit about Cole Palmer, and every time I seem to do that on this podcast, he always turns it up a notch. They finally made the right decision, in my opinion, playing him as a number 10, and he was key. I mean, that was a very good tactical decision, in my opinion, and you saw it in this match. It felt like almost every opportunity that Chelsea got came directly, some way or another, through Cole Palmer. His influence on this Chelsea offense is very pivotal. He had an amazing finish early onto the game that caused that first Chelsea goal. And if it were for some better finishing from his teammates, they easily could have gotten a few more in that first half.
Right, and I think that whole right side of Chelsea's roster was amazing. It was their engine. You had Gusto playing like a roaming number 10, and Palmer and Neto overloading the half space relentlessly. And Palmer's opener was textbook Maresca. You have four players occupying two defenders, Chaloba stepping up untracked, and Palmer exploits the space created by Delap's subtle movement. So many little strategic actions in there. Very well set up goal. Andre Santos filled in admirably at the base as well, recycling possession and keeping his composure under Palmeiras' increased press in the second half. And despite Chelsea dealing with a patched up lineup, no Caicedo, no Lavia, and a last minute change with Reece James injured in the warm up, even without Caicedo's power or Lavia's distribution, you had Enzo Fernandez dropping deeper, a role that he executed smoothly, especially in the transitions. Delap pinned the defenders well, though I do think he lacked efficiency. And his suspension for the semifinal might be a blessing in disguise given Joao Pedro's sharp cameo. As for Palmeiras, they were missing key defensive leaders like Gustavo Gomez, who got a red card against Botafogo, and in this game it showed. Without his presence at the back, they struggled to contain Chelsea's dynamic attackers late on. Dewsbury Hall found space between the lines, and Jackson's movement in behind forced Palmeiras into deeper, more reactive defending than they're really used to. And Maresca's subs ultimately worked. Joao Pedro's movement, again, was great, and Madueke's directness created fresh danger down the stretch. Ultimately, Chelsea's depth has come in at a great time for them once again in a game. And I think them being able to bring in lots of players off their bench made a great difference here to this outcome because they were able to get that second goal and hold on for the full 90 minutes.
Yeah, I think Chelsea played a tactically brilliant game. Shifting to the three in the back on offense, I think was a great idea, and even allowing Chabala and Cucurella to still have a very offensive presence, despite being those three backline players, was very big. And I think the fact that they chose to let Malo Gusto have all that space as an offensive fullback, pairing him alongside Pedro Neto, really meant that there was really no void at all on the right side being left by Cole Palmer being moved towards the middle. And I also think that basically all the subs were really good. As you were saying, João Pedro in his debut for Chelsea, actually, a very good performance. I think Nori Madueke also had quite a bit of impact coming into that second half. And even Dewsbury Hall, the Leicester trader, might I add, sorry, just had to put that in there, had a decent performance. I think even though he didn't really get a lot of chances because he came on quite late, his positioning was quite similar to the way Malo Gusto played. And I think if Chelsea want to continue using that three in the back, he is going to be a solid backup option for them if they want to keep pressing offensively.
Yeah, and I think while Chelsea's winner was a bit lucky, of course, with an own goal, their pressure in the final 15 minutes justified it. You had Gusto's movement consistently unsettling the Palmeiras left side, and even as Palmeiras flooded forward, the defensive structure held firm, with Chaloba and Colwill making key late interventions. And Chelsea now head into the semi-final with signs of growing cohesion in the team, something which I've said before in previous segments is obviously an issue for this team given how big their roster is, how many new players they sign. So this is a great sign for them, really, that they're able to make deep plays like this, well-planned actions on the field. they will need a sharper Nkunku and a more consistent midfield, perhaps, to um, beat Fluminense. But now that they've outlasted two Brazilian sides in tense contests, they've managed to get their tactics down. It seems like to me, and I think having that experience now going into this semifinals match is going to be a great thing for them. And having all this practice time against teams that play decently similarly to Flumi is definitely going to help them out a lot in the next round.
Yeah, I think we've definitely seen both of these teams really adjust into their tactics, and I think we can already get a sort of expectation as to how they're going to play coming into this next match. Chelsea are going to once again try to control the possession like they did this time, shifting between a 4-2-3-1 on defense and more of a guess like a 3 I don't know, like a 3-3-3-1 sort of, if you know what I'm trying to say, on offense. And Fluminense is going to revert to the 4-2-3-1. They're going to be defensive, try to bully Chelsea on the midfield, and soak off of counters. But with Moises Caicedo coming back from suspension, with Romeo Lavia potentially coming back from his injury, although we don't really know for sure yet, I think Chelsea are probably going to be able to create a few more chances than they did against Palmeiras. Still, with Liam Delap out, there's an open question as to who's going to play that striker role, whether it's going to be Nicholas Jackson or João Pedro. Now, it's I think depending on who they choose, it's going to be a very different prediction. But for me, I'm going to make the assumption that Nicholas Jackson is going to start for them because he has had a lot more experience with this Chelsea squad. And as good as João Pedro was in this first match, I personally, if I were Enzo Maresca, would not trust a new signing that came to my club 3 days ago to be a starting striker in an important knockout match.
I think with all that said, we can probably go to the next match, the semifinals match, and try and predict how this is going to go. So we've got Fluminense against Chelsea, and I think right off the bat, Flumi are going to want rhythm, possession chains, diagonal switches, and some controlled vertical play. Chelsea, meanwhile, they thrive on lightning breaks and disruption. So they are going to want just the game to just go out of control. I think that's where they're going to thrive. Maybe not. Maybe they aren't so much chaos agents as a team like Al Hilal, which Fluminense played in that last round. But I do think they are going to do better if the game just doesn't have too much structure to it. I will say Fluminense will probably dominate the ball early. They're going to try and bait Chelsea's press, find John Arias or Hercules in space. But Chelsea should be able to trust their back three to hold firm because, again, we've seen their back line has done quite well. And they'll be looking to spring transitions through players like Palmer and Gusto. You'll probably have a midfield battle between Enzo and, again, John Arias. Whoever finds space between the lines could dictate the shape of the match. And again, watch for Joao Pedro's impact. His substitution on last match was great, and he is still adapting, but his link play can exploit Fluminense's slightly slow center backs, assuming Palmer is able to drag defenders away. Without Martinelli as well, Flu lose a key vertical outlet, meaning more weight falls on Hercules to carry transitions and press high. Both of these sides are maybe a bit thinner at depth than usual. Again, Chelsea is missing. Crap, who is it? Delap. Chelsea's missing Delap, and Fluminense again missing Martinelli. But Chelsea's just got more depth on their roster to begin with. I mean, look at how many players they have. I'll probably pull up a visual like I did for the last episode. Their roster is just massive. This game, I think, will come down to who can outlast the other physically and mentally through the regular 90 minutes. But if it does go to extra time, I'd say Chelsea have a pretty big advantage there.
Yeah, I think you're probably right that in order to substitute Martinelli, they're going to Fluminense are going to play Hercules, and honestly, I don't think that's going to be much of an impact on Fluminense. Hercules has been very solid for the team, and he has scored in two clutch opportunities in the two games that he has been substituted on in the knockout stages so far, sealing both for Fluminense. I think they're going to once again be very strong on the counter. And meanwhile, I think while they're going to be very efficient with their chances, as they have been all knockout stage, I'm not sure that Chelsea can do that. And I think if they do start Nicholas Jackson, I don't rate him very highly. He hasn't had a very good tournament so far, and I see him dragging down this Chelsea team with him, to be honest. And with that Chelsea squad lining up Nicholas Jackson as striker, going up against the solid defensive effort that Fluminense have had so far, I think Chelsea will struggle to score, and I think Fluminense are going to take advantage of the few chances they get and at least get a goal in. I said last episode that no matter whether it's Fluminense or Al Hilal that wins this match, either side is capable of beating Chelsea, and I'm sticking to that statement. I think Fluminense are going to get another shock win and take Chelsea down with a 1-0 victory.
Okay, 1 goal to their name. That's an interesting result because I think we've had, generally speaking, throughout these predictions, we've had like 2-0s, 2-1s. I know you had that crazy like Bayern 4-0 against Flamengo. Okay, so low scoring. I see how it is. I will say, I mean, Chelsea's versatility is a big secret weapon here. They flipped between like 3, 4 structures in this tournament alone. And again, like I said before, they've had great strategy throughout that last game against Palmeiras. And I think Maresca's in-game tweaks could be pretty decisive. Um, Depending on whether or not he executes them well. Fluminense's best path to winning this game is going to be to keep things narrow and congested. Deny Chelsea the room to switch play and try and force some errors and build up so they can get on the counter. Sanchez may be called into action more than Fábio, especially if Fluminense can get space on the edge of the box. His shot stopping has been strong so far, but can he beat the consistently strong Fábio in the GK battle? It's questionable. There is also Chelsea's right side, which, like I said before, has been quite dominant. But I think Fluminense's left is also their most solid, so that could push a player like Palmer inside more often as opposed to staying on the wing. Set pieces as well could be a separator. Fluminense have the aerial presence, but Chelsea have got good delivery. One lapse in a set piece could decide the game. It is a razor thin margin, and it's pretty hard for me to make a choice here. But like I said earlier, I think Chelsea's flexibility, bench options, and the good form some of their players like Palmer are on are going to edge them through. I'm going to pull up a score line that I've used quite a few times in this bracket. I'm going to say Chelsea go through 2-1, and a late goal will get them in.
All right. One thing I do want to say before I move on, I want to give a quick shout out to that one dude in our comment section, DKS, who last episode when we both predicted Al Hilal to beat Fluminense, he was like, "Nah, boys, you're wrong. Fluminense got this," and he was right. So let's see what he has to say about this match. But I think I'm not going to be letting him down anymore.
Okay, fair enough. Then I guess we've got. I mean, it's the semifinals, so there's only one other match we need to look at, and we have potentially the matchup of the tournament. I mean, like fan base wise, I'm sure there's going to be massive attendance for this game. It's the defending first time UCL winners versus the kings of knockout football. We've got PSG and Real Madrid.
PSG have really reinvented the tactics of football in this new decade. They play so fluidly, their players are fully committed, and with their fullbacks like Hakimi and Nuno Mendes being able to push forward, with their wingers, especially Kvaratskhelia, being able to push back, contribute more on the press. This team plays so well that it's so difficult to deal with the overload and try to defend all of the key lanes that PSG expose at once. Even Bayern, who I think are one of the more solid defenses overall in this tournament, they were overwhelmed at times by this PSG attack. And if it weren't for a key save by Manuel Neuer, PSG would have had 3 goals.
Right. Though I will say, I do think there was a bit of a momentum shift in this game. From the score line, it looks like Bayern might have not done all too much, but at the start, I think they were doing quite well. I know what were predictions for this match. We had like a goal or two for each team in the first half and a shootout in maybe the final third. It was definitely a bit off. There were good chances from both teams towards the start, but they usually never had the right finishing. But again, Bayern did have momentum at the start and things were looking promising for them. There were multiple attempts from Elise that had to be saved by Donnarumma. Of course, Neuer had that great save on Kvara in the 6-yard box, but besides that, PSG shots weren't really hitting. And then came extra time. Upamecano seems like he's able to open the scoring with a header for Bayern, but it gets off called for offside, and it's still 0-0. Then on PSG's end of the field, Pacho trying to get a hold of the ball, Musiala chasing after him, Donnarumma diving in to grab it, and Musiala ends up with a terrible, terrible ankle injury. That shit was hard to watch. I'm sure you can find clips on Twitter or something. I'm not going to put one in here out of respect, and I get the feeling that even if I did, YouTube would strike it down real fast. And I can't say for sure how much of an impact that had. I mean, I think they subbed in Gnabry for him after halftime, but once halftime came and went and the second half started, I'd say the momentum definitely started shifting PSG's way.
Yeah, and honestly, while Bayern did have a few chances with two goals called off, we do have to give a lot of credit to that PSG defense on the offside press. Luis Enrique knew that I think PSG's biggest issue defensively is aerial. Like both William Pacho and Marquinhos are more like ground duel defenders, and so using that offensive trap on all Bayern's crosses was a very smart play there. And even on the chances they do get, like you were saying, we do have to give a lot of credit to Donnarumma. Every time PSG need him to come up clutch, he is always there to provide the service, and it feels that PSG have an almost sort of air of inevitability around them. I mean, the fact that late in this match, they go down to 9 men. They're up 1-0. All you need to do is defend and park the bus, make sure Bayern don't score, and they somehow get a second goal, two players down. This it's just absolutely crazy work. This PSG squad does some crazy stuff, and honestly, it feels like this is like the Kendrick Lamar of football, you know? Like no one wants to mess with these guys. They're gonna find a way. I'm not saying that they're easily just gonna stop Real Madrid and win this competition easily, but every time that I think they might be challenged, when in that Champions League, I thought Inter Milan might have a chance to take them down 5-0. Like it seems like there just isn't a way to stop this PSG squad.
Yeah, and I mean, I overviewed the first half. I want to look at this second half as well because it was absolutely insane. For anyone who didn't watch this match, it is absolutely worth taking a look at the highlights. But I'm just going to go over this. PSG, they get a shot off like a couple minutes in to the second half. It was from Barcola. He forces a save from Neuer. Bayern is still doing all right, so both teams are getting shots off, and it almost feels like the battle of the goalkeepers between Neuer and Donna to keep a clean sheet. Then, in the 73rd minute, Neuer makes a big mistake out of his box with a boot that deflected straight off Kvara, leaving the ball to roll back toward the open net with everyone scrambling for it. Neuer gets a slide tackle on Kvara, but the ball slipped to Dembele, and it seems like that is right there when they're going to open the scoring. That shot he took could not have been more than a couple inches from the post. Achingly close. But you could tell PSG was playing better at that moment in time than Bayern, and they kept that momentum because a few minutes later, Joao Neves steals the ball from Kane at the halfway line and assists Doué as he catches Neuer wrong-footed and finally scores the opener 78 minutes in. It took a long time, but PSG definitely had the closest chances up until that point, and they finally got the scoring started. And you would think that maybe PSG at this point, since so many of these chances have gone awry, maybe they get away with like a 1-0 win. Pacho gets a red card 4 minutes later. I don't know what the hell happened, but Bayern, they go on the attack. They get some free kicks, and Harry Kane scores, only for that to be called offside. Because Darian, like you said, there were two offside goals, and so PSG are still up, only for them to get a second red as Lucas Hernandez goes off. And so now it seems like Bayern can surely make something out of it, but PSG, they somehow get a fast break off of, I will say, by the way, some amazing passing. And Dembele gets a shot off that goes off the bar. It's like you said, they seem inevitable, but I will say for a lot of these chances, it seems like just at the very last moment something went on, or something went wrong, especially for Dembele. But ball gets passed around the box, Hakimi works through three defenders, puts a pass in for Dembele, who finally gets his goal. And PSG, two men down, have just put a second ball past Bayern to secure their spot in the semifinals. What an insane final 20 minutes, and what an electric match this was. Absolutely amazing. something I will definitely be rewatching in the future.
And you know what's crazy about that? It feels like the best is still yet to come for this PSG squad. I mean, Usman Dembele getting on the score sheet in this match. And honestly, before today, bro, I straight up forgot that he was in PSG's Club World Cup lineup because this man has played 48 minutes in total in the Club World Cup so far, and yet PSG offense looks the way it does. He's gonna start against Real Madrid. So I don't even know how good it's about to be when they go up against Madrid. And with the way Madrid's defense played against Dortmund, that could cause some problems.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at Luis Enrique, and he did not just match Bayern's aggression; he absolutely embraced it here. You had a system of relentless verticality powered by Vitinha and Neves. PSG had great tempo control, which came not from just slow build-up, but smart, fearless off-ball runs that allowed them to keep the game moving quickly. Bayern, they tried to stretch PSG early with wide switches and Kane's central positioning, but Coman and Elise lacked the final delivery, and so PSG was just able to keep moving. And their shape adapted well after Gnabry subbed in for Musiala. You had Neves taking command in the half spaces and Doué pressing high to keep Bayern pinned. Neuer again made two spectacular saves in that first in one in the first half on Kvara, one to start off the second half on Barcola, but he just couldn't stop the late collapse that PSG was able to pressure Bayern into. That first goal showed how great PSG is on the transition. Again, Neves intercepting Kane, rapid progression, and Doué delivers a calm finish while Neuer is caught completely flat. But even after Pacho and Hernandez were sent off, they remained aggressive. Dembele's goal, following again Hakimi's surreal solo run through three defenders, was defiance incarnate. It was amazing to see. Um, you've got to give so much credit to Hakimi there for even managing to get that pass off because it seems like he was just going to be locked into the corner after that play. This match was chaotic, but PSG, they somehow managed to maintain some overarching control. They executed their goals with resilience and courage, and if there were doubts before about this team, they're gone now. PSG are warriors, they are contenders, and they have never looked more ready for a team like Real Madrid.
And speaking of Real Madrid, let's take a look at their match against Dortmund. So Gonzalo Garcia once again scoring off of a cross, and at this point he is a certified aerial threat. And you know how we were talking about how PSG's defensive weakness uh, is the sort of aerial duels. That could be a big factor coming into that match against PSG as well. But still, despite the fact he was a perennial bench warmer to Mbappe this entire season, he has had a goal contribution in every game, 5 games into this Club World Cup. As well, the overload that Real Madrid play with Xabi Alonso's system, sort of similar to PSG in that sense as well. That's what causes the second goal for Fran Garcia. And by the end of the game, like Real Madrid really has almost all of the chances. It's some sloppy defending at the end that leads to Dortmund getting 2 goals back.
Yeah, I mean, again, just amazing performance from Gonzalo Garcia. It's his fourth goal of the tournament. We've seen some amazing performances from him, and we can expect that to continue for sure. Then Fran Garcia, no relation to Gonzalo, makes it 2-0 inside 20 minutes. Pinpoint cross from Trent Alexander-Arnold, by the way, to set up that goal. Gets past like two defenders right through the box, and Fran made no mistake at the far post. It's two youth academy players on the score sheet now, and Dortmund just looked lost. Kovac's side had no grip on the midfield, no width, and no bite in front of goal. There was a triple sub at halftime, which helped, but it didn't immediately shift the tide. And so Madrid was able to stay in cruise control for most of the second half. They didn't overextend. They still forced Kobel into a few strong saves as they were basically just like holding Dortmund down. And a third goal for them honestly felt inevitable. Then came the mayhem. Bayer pulled one back in the 93rd minute, hammering in a rebound that gave Dortmund life and suddenly electrified the stadium. But Madrid struck back instantly. It was like A minute or so later, you had Mbappe, who is still finding full fitness after his illness. He subbed in and volleyed home a stunning scissor kick to reassert control. Of course, the game wasn't over because as soon as they restarted, Housen pulled down Garassi in the box, got sent off. Garassi buried the pen, 3-2, uh, Madrid down to 10 men. And Dortmund did push hard for an equalizer. Sabitzer unleashed an absolute rocket in the 99th, but Courtois was there, one of the saves of the tournament, to preserve the win. And final whistle, 3-2. Madrid survived the scare. Dortmund bow out swinging, but Real's early control and composure toward the end were able to get them through. Again, they did kind of break down a bit, but their high scoring to start off the match was more than enough to get them through this into the semis. The crowd of 76,000 at the MetLife, the largest of the tourneys so far, if I'm not mistaken, witnessed a great match here from Madrid. Youth brilliance, some late drama, and tournament know-how. And so now PSG await.
All right, and even though it was a great game for both Garcias once again, Bellingham and Vinny Jr. have yet another unclinical game where they miss quite a few chances. And although Mbappe does get on the score sheet with that certified banger of a finish, you can't have your best players have an off day against PSG. But like I was saying before, PSG's biggest defensive weakness is aerial duels, and with Gonzalo Garcia there to take advantage, I definitely think that Real Madrid will score at least one anyways. Besides, this is Real Madrid in a knockout competition. Like, they're gonna score a goal.
Right, that's not a question. And yeah, like you said, Gonzalo's aerial movement and composure are brilliant. They look elite for his age. And yeah, Fran's overlapping presence too made Dortmund shape collapse again and again, so the two Garcias could be a real threat in this next game. But we do need to look at everyone else on the roster. I mean, Housen, his red card is a pretty big blow. He'd quietly been having a pretty good tournament, and his absence means Madrid is going to need to reshuffle a back line that was finally feeling pretty settled. Mbappe looked sharp despite those fitness questions, and you could expect him to start against PSG, though again, Gonzalo's been doing great, so it's kind of hard to say. As for Vinny, like you said, he was pretty lively, but he lacked end product. There was like a wild chip attempt from 30 yards out, and I feel like it summed up his night. Electric, but erratic. If he sharpens, Madrid become a lot scarier, but if his decision making stays hit or miss, then PSG's more physical backline is going to punish that lack of polish. And again, Madrid's late game wobble is a bit of a red flag. They were cruising and then suddenly conceded 2 in 5 minutes or so. That kind of lapse might be fine against Dortmund, especially because they were able to score so many right off the rip. But against a team like PSG, that could be fatal. Uh, Courtois, yes, he did stop Sabitzer's shot, but he struggled to catch it clean. Madrid's defensive shape in those final moments felt loose and reactive more so than proactive. The mental strength is there. They did hold on to the win, of course, but the margin is shrinking with this next match. Madrid, they're still looking strong, but they simply cannot afford to drift against a PSG side that finishes significantly better than Dortmund does. Xabi Alonso's side, they're going to move on with a strong sense of belief, but certainly not invincibility. Against PSG, it is going to take a full game in control, not just the regular 90 minutes, in order to survive.
And honestly, like, I'm not convinced of Madrid's defense after that match. Rudiger completely scuffs a clearance for Dortmund's first goal. Houghton takes an unnecessary red for that second, which is a key defensive loss for Madrid coming up to this match. And with the way that PSG are able to just have such an insane, dynamic offensive threat, I think Madrid are not ready. And PSG, in my opinion, are going to get plenty of chances, the lion's share of the possession, and dominate the game. And if it weren't for Courtois, this match would have gotten ugly. But because he's in net and he is going to make a bunch of clutch saves to keep Madrid in this game, I'm going to have a relatively tamer scoreline, but I still think it's a comfortable win for PSG. 3-1 is my final prediction.
I mean, like I said, this is the matchup of the tournament, arguably. You've got Madrid arriving with real pedigree, of course, but PSG are also finally looking like a complete tournament team. Ever since that late Champions League run, they've just been absolutely amazing in these knockout competitions. PSG's vertical transitions are going to be Madrid's biggest test yet. They tore Bayern apart in the final 20 minutes, and with Madrid's fullbacks often tucking in, the wide overloads from Barcola, Hakimi, Dembele could stretch them thin. Madrid's got a pretty talented midfield, but PSG's trio of Neves, Ruiz, Vitinha is better at tilting the pitch. They are able to win the ball and break lines in one motion, and so Real is probably going to need to drop maybe Chouameni deeper in order to absorb that. PSG's midfield is no doubt, in my mind, the strongest in Europe, likely the best the world over, and Madrid is going to need to put in a lot of work to beat their timing and their precision. Courtois may be forced into a high volume game again. If PSG can isolate players like Guler, Valverde wide, they'll get space to fire, and they can get, I'm sure, a lot of shots off. And so Courtois is going to need to be making a lot of saves. You're also going to have Vinny Jr. versus Hakimi. That will be absolute fireworks. If Vinny cuts inside too early, Marquinhos will close him, and if he holds wide, Hakimi's recovery speed becomes a wall. And so, like I said before, Vinny, who had some problems with decision making in that game against Borussia, he is going to need to play this game very smart. And of course, we've got Gonzalo Garcia as well, who has played amazingly. And his runs off the last man will be a big test for the back line. But PSG have done well stepping up in unison. So ultimately, this is going to come down to timing. There will be maybe quite a bit of luck involved here. And also whether Madrid's service is clean enough under pressure and whether they're able to get that ball to their attackers to take some shots and hopefully score early. PSG, I know, is going to start fast, and if they strike first, especially in the first half hour, Madrid might honestly get torn apart. And I do think PSG can score decently early. I don't think they'll score as much as you had, though, Darian. I am going to actually just throw in the same score line that I had for Chelsea Flumi. Maybe a bit lazy of me. And I'm going to say they win 2-1. They'll get their 2 goals early. Madrid will find one back late, but they won't get an equalizer.
All right. Well, then, with that being said, we have our predictions. But before we have this episode, I want to make one final question for you, Swapnil. So, you have a Chelsea vs PSG final. I have a Fluminense vs PSG final. So, just real quick, who's winning the Club World Cup 2025?
Okay. Well, I can't flesh this out too much, of course. And I'm sure we'll have another video for the final, so we'll do more of that in that segment. But if you've got PSG playing Chelsea, I'm going to take the favorites. It's going to be PSG. I think you did say just before we started recording that apparently Chelsea, they're no longer tournament favorites to win. The only reason they really were tournament favorites is because they had a good side of the bracket. Now that PSG are through to the semis, they are the favorites, and I'm going to have to agree with that. Because if PSG make it through Madrid, I just think they've shown more edge than Chelsea. Like, they've suffered, especially in that Bayern game, 2 red cards, and they've still found ways to win, like with that second goal. You have Neves, Vitinha, Ruiz, again, probably the best. I think definitely the best midfield in the tournament. They've been calm, smart, and always moving the ball forward with the team. And Chelsea's midfield could get absolutely drowned. PSG, pretty terrifying on the wings as well. Hakimi just keeps burning down that right side, and he's had some ridiculous dribbling. Dembele too. Chelsea's fullbacks have not had to deal with that kind of pace and aggression yet. And defensively, PSG have also been pretty solid. Marquinhos and Beraldo have already shown they can handle elite strikers like Kane, Muller, Musiala. And I'm not saying Chelsea won't test them, but those guys are on it right now. PSG, they just feel like they're playing with belief. Like they know this is their year. And I can't blame them after that dominant Champions League win. And they've been doing well in this tournament too. So I can't blame them if they think they're pretty likely to win this whole tourney. They've got guys who can flip a game on a dime Dembele, Barcola, even Neves now. And they even despite that individual talent, they're still winning as a unit, and that's actually way scarier. One chance, one break, and this PSG team will punish you. That kind of danger is just so hard to game plan for, and whatever Maresca is able to pull off with his pre-planning, I just don't think it's going to work. So I've got to have PSG winning. Won't give a specific scoreline, but it's got to be them for me.
So my final prediction is basically going to be unstoppable force vs immovable object. So it's for me it's about as 50-50 as you can really get. As basically about as good of a defense as you're going to see, and the best offense that we've seen, I would say, this decade. The best team we've seen this decade, honestly, in PSG. So just based on that, I am going to go with PSG once again. The only concern is that a few more suspensions might happen. Now Dembele is going to be on a yellow. I think my understanding of the red card rule is that Pacho will be back for the final, as well as Lucas Hernandez, although he is, like, with all due respect, a bit less of a factor on this PSG squad. It's not going to be a very high-scoring match. Again, I'm not going to go too specific. I'm not going to make a scoreline prediction. But I don't think Fluminense are going to be able to score on this PSG defense. PSG will probably capitalize on their opportunities. These, again, have so many ways to attack, and I think Fluminense might be a bit too narrow to deal with all of that. So I'm going to agree with you. I think right now PSG are looking like the favorites to win the Club World Cup.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we're going to see then how these matches go. It is a couple days still before they play out. We have Fluminense and Chelsea playing on the 8th of July. I mean, it depends on time zones, but in North America anyway, it's going to be the 8th of July. And then PSG versus Madrid on the 9th. So we'll wait for these games to play out, and then I think assuming we have the time, we will put out another segment doing similar analysis of the semifinals games and making a formal prediction for the final once we know for sure which two teams are going to be in there. So watch out for that video. Yeah. And we've also, Darian, are we doing a Gold Cup segment as well? Because that's just about wrapping
so
up
when
at this
the Gold
point.
Cup is finished, because it's just one game, and I feel like we would just be talking about the same things over and over again with how inevitable this final is about to be in the Gold Cup. I think we're most likely probably just gonna do like a power ranking or some sort of other video where we just more so summarize the state of the continent as a whole after the finals.
Right. I know in our last Gold Cup video, or one of them anyway, we did informal power ranking for a segment. So we can do that formally. We won't predict the final just because it's happening tomorrow and we won't have the time to put a video out.
Mexico
But
won.
we will analyze it afterwards, just as part of our rankings. So yeah, watch out for those segments. And again, for this competition, the Club World Cup, we'll have another video coming out in a couple days' time. So make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications if you enjoyed the content so that you can see those upcoming videos. And thank you for watching up to this point, for seeing the whole video. The engagement is much appreciated. And yeah, stay tuned for new episodes of the CoDaKrew. We'll see you guys soon. Have a good
All right.
day.
See ya.